our conferences are, for most business owners, regardless of size of business, they're a game changer, and for some, life changing. I mean, it's a
really
conference.
transformational moment, I would assume.
It is. It's I don't know. It's Jack Welch meets Tony Robbins, so it's a great day for most businesses.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Exit Is Now podcast with me, your host, Scott Snider. I am hanging out with our friend and colleague, Terry. Came all the way in from Dallas, Texas. Although we always have this talk, I feel, when we're hanging out. You're a Georgia boy, though, right?
I am. ATL, baby.
Yeah. See, so welcome to the show. I appreciate you coming on. I feel if for a lot of our CEPAs and people inside of the EPI community specifically, you probably know the Generational Group. Generational Group is a partner here at the Exit Planning Institute. You see him a lot at the summit. We share a lot of content together. We do a lot of work together. Terry is the Chief Revenue Officer over there formerly. And when I was hanging out with Terry, I guess this would have been in January, we were at a conference in Dallas, and we were able to come hang out with you guys for dinner. We always kind of jive on NASCAR. And you had said, man, our family business back in the day actually sponsored, was like the main sponsor of a NASCAR. And this is way back when, probably before it was like crazy expensive like it is now. It's wild to watch NASCAR today. They race something like, 30 or 40 races.
Right.
And even the big boys, like FedEx sponsors Denny Hamlin, they don't even do a full season with them anymore because it's so damn expensive. But I think so when I got at that dinner, when we were talking, that was the first that I really heard you more deeply talk about your family business. And so I thought, what a cool story and a cool journey that you've been on, actually, from working inside Johnson Industries, kind of coming full circle now, selling that company, and now representing owners who are selling companies. So that's where we're going to go today, and let's kind of dive in. I want to start with the Johnson Industries. Take me all the way back. That business was started by your dad or your grandfather?
Well, not technically. It was actually started by my godfather. My dad... The short version is he came out of the mountains of North Georgia.
Okay.
Him and his best friend went to the big city of Atlanta to go to college, and they both walked into a part-time job interview, and there was only one spot available, and the owner, who ended up being my godfather eventually, they only had one spot, so he said he chose the one with the best handwriting, and so my dad got the job. Okay. And it was the only job he ever had. 45 years later. I mean, so he worked there for 20 years under Mr. Layfield. And then they always had a handshake deal. So when Mr. Layfield got ready to retire, my dad bought the business. And coincidentally, at that time, I was graduating from Auburn. It really wasn't planned, even though I'd worked through in the summers there.
Kind of a traditional family company, right? Where you've worked there since you were a kid, right? Like a broom on the floor or something.
Yeah, I was.
But so go back. So your dad then, over a handshake agreement, comes into ownership of this company.
He does.
Does he rename it Johnson Industries?
We eventually rebranded it to Johnson Industries.
And you were in automotive, right? What was the business
We were an
making?
automotive parts distribution company, primarily OE parts.
Okay. Yeah. So your dad comes in there, rebrands it, and then after, how long before you join then?
Almost really within a year after he acquired the company. We had 5 employees at the time doing less than $1 million a year in revenue, so it was a small business.
I was, because when me and you talked, you were doing like $300 million in revenue. Is that what you're doing or something?
We peaked at 300.
$300 million. So I have this could be probably a whole show in and of itself. I have so many questions because, as you know, one of my, I wouldn't say a struggle, one of the things I'm getting used to is going from the 5 of us to the 30 of us to the 40 of us. And I told this story on another show. We had 2 new employees start, and my office kind of overlooks our parking lot, right? And the attrition that I started early on when we were like 2 or 5, and we would add like 1 person a year, it was easy to take the whole team out, right? Because we were a team of 5.
Right.
So a new person would join. Now we're a team of 6. Let's take them out to lunch, right? And we'd have an extended lunch like over a couple hours and hang out and really get to know the person outside of all the basic training that they were doing back in the office. and it's kind of become woven into our culture. So, we had 2 new people start 2 different departments. One in our operations department, which is overseen by Jocelyn. One in our marketing department, overseen by Paige. And I see a whole group of people. So Paige's probably got 6 on her team. Jocelyn's got 5 on her team. So I got to see 11 people exit the office at noon. I'm like, oh, I wonder what the hell they're doing. And what I realized in that moment, it was the 2 new people's first day. They were taking them all out to lunch. And I immediately thought to myself, where was my invite? I was just
right.
like, I'm, so, out of the day-to-day with them, I guess. That's like, you have Paige and Jocelyn doing what I did for them, for their people. So I have so many questions on going from 1 million, which I didn't realize how small it was when you and Dad kind of took it over, all the way up to 300 million. So you're 1 million, you're 5 people. What role did you have then coming out of college and coming into the company?
Well, it wasn't real specific. It was everything. I did it all. So I cleaned bathrooms. I answered the phones. Say I delivered parts in the truck. I, packed boxes, shipped orders, did whatever it took.
Yeah. And when did you get into a more formal business management type position there? Was your dad teaching you the craft that you guys had and the business?
Yeah, I started in the accounting department, and he wanted to make sure I learned everything there, and then just rotated around and learned it all. So we grew about 30 to 40% every year for 23 straight years, which was
it's incredible,
exhilarating.
Yeah. So when you go to sell that company, you were at about 300 million,
or we were at about 150
million at point of sale.
So after the acquisition, we went on an acquisition spree with the company that bought us, using their capital, which was kind of liberating.
Yeah, right, liberating for different.
So somebody else's money.
That's quite different.
We made about 20 acquisitions, double the size of the business, grew to about 300 million.
And how long did that take?
We did that in about 3 years.
Yeah, but mostly through acquisition.
Mostly through. Some organic. But prior to that, it was all organic. To get to about 150.
So go back again. So we're going from 1 million to 150 million in 20-something years.
About 20, yeah.
Was your dad involved heavily during all of those 20 years?
Very.
And had your role.
He was the best salesman we had.
Yeah, really? Yeah. I always think it's fascinating, too, that. So what were some of the early lessons, I guess, for you? Like, how did you get, and our business, we're growing by like 50% a year. I only can imagine looking back, because that was when you sold that business in 1999?
99, 2000.
So, so long time ago. And a lot of, we'll get there, but a lot of evolution in our marketplace, right, in the M&A world, in the exit planning world. So back then, though, early on, and what was that journey like, 1 to 150, 30% a year for 20 years?
Not for the faint of heart, right?
I would imagine.
When you're growing like that, it outstrips everything. It outstrips your technology. It outstrips your processes. It outstrips, so you're reinventing every year. And
totally.
And so, really what I learned through the whole, people, it's all about people. So we, success comes down to who you surround yourself with. So we were blessed with great people.
How many did you have? And when you got to the 150 million mark, how many people were running around?
600-700.
Oh my gosh! All employees, or some of them like
all employees? Yeah.
I could not imagine. So I'm worried about going from 5 to 50. You're going from 5 to 700 people, man. Where was the business located? In Georgia or Texas?
In Atlanta.
In Atlanta. Okay, in Atlanta. So we were also, we're talking about how I think when I come hang out with you guys, you're all kind of very entrepreneurial, but I also think that there's like a little bit of like a sense of family there as well, because you guys, your ownership's like or at least in part, a kind of a father-son type team, right?
We are. We're one of the largest privately held,
That's true.
in the U.S., but we're family, right?
Yeah.
Ryan Binkley is the CEO. His dad, Dr. Binkley. And they really set the tone for the culture, and it's a pleasure to have that kind of leadership, and it's special, right? I mean, that kind of and it starts at the top. So we've got great leadership and ownership, and that just filters down. But they encourage. We're empowered, right?
Yeah.
And we're empowered to lead, and that's a fun environment to be in.
So go back. You're talking about people and culture. What was that like? What was that like? They're all in one shop, or did you guys have multiple shops?
We had, at the time we were acquired, we had locations in Atlanta and Dallas, Monterrey, Mexico, and Santiago, Chile.
Wow. So now a whole nother slew of questions. So different cultures, different countries. How is that running that business now when you're not just having the American culture, but you have three different cultures?
Well, we learned a hard lesson in Mexico.
Okay.
I'll tell you that story.
Yeah, please.
Over a beverage.
Over a beverage. So we'll go off air and tell me that one. Okay.
But Santiago, we had a great partner down there, and so. But it just comes down to people. And early in my career, I was really fortunate to have met some people. I met Richard Branson, I met John Maxwell, and some others. That really, their whole focus was culture, right? Servant leadership, and really putting the employee or the associate first, not the client, which back then was a novel thought. That really comes to putting your people first. And so I became passionate about that, read every book I could find on culture and, the Southwest culture, the Starbucks culture, and every company that had and so really for me, the focus began to just be on the people and the culture and turn that into a competitive advantage, because it's really, at the end of the day, it's the one thing that your competitor can't go out and duplicate.
That's fair. That is fair to say. And especially in your business, right? That had to be unique, too, concentrating on people and culture in that particular business, or maybe not. I think that had to be a competitive edge for you.
It did. But we were really blessed with just great people, and we were able to attract great people, and we were able to keep them.
And keep them in long term.
Long term, yeah. Most of our people have been with us 10, 20 years.
Yeah, so, that's amazing.
It was.
We always celebrate Josh Koza, as you know, right? Because he's been here 9 years. Yeah. But that's a big run.
By
too,
the way,
in a small
you got
company.
Great people.
Thank you.
I don't
our
just
team
say
here,
that. You got great people.
For somebody who's a people and culture guy and sees a lot of companies in today, that does mean a lot.
You got great people, and I'm impressed with your culture, too.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we. But it's also deliberate practice, right? Like we practice, and it's very intentional the way we live around here. Core values, how we invest in our people, the stuff that we do. So. It isn't an easy thing, to be totally honest with you.
It's easy to talk about. It's very, very difficult to do, and you said it well. It takes intentionality.
Absolutely.
And it's not one thing. It's 100 little things.
It is. When you, my dad always talks about, he has those 4 C's, those 4 intangible capitals, right? He has the structural stuff, which are systems and processes, right? The customer capital, which is pretty self-explanatory, and the human capital, your people. He talks about this social capital being your culture, and he always says that the social capital is one of the hardest to actually achieve, but once really achieved, really powers the other 3, right?
So I love that.
Right?
Yeah,
it really powers the other 3. Yeah. You can have good people, you could have good systems, you have great customers, but it's really the culture that's created. I'm trying to create, our biggest thing now, Terry, is taking, I think I told you this over dinner back in January, where I've challenged what Jocelyn has really created, our operations manager who's in charge of people, culture, process. Our employees, out of our 6 scale, so 6 being perfect, 5 being best in class for us, rated us for the first time 5.23, first time we've ever been over 5, so just barely over 5. Wow. So that's approaching a perfect culture, which is pretty incredible, and that's rated by our employees back to us. It's an anonymous survey that they can give us harsh feedback onto, which they have. And I could tell you that 2021, and I talk about this story for our listeners, I talk about this story, this change in 2020, 2021 for us. They rated us a 3, so below average. Okay. So from 21 to 23, just a short couple of years, we went from a 3 to a 5.23. And so what I'm challenging now to do, I was just thinking about this with the customer capital, is having our people, our partners like you, our certified exit planning advisors, our members, rate the customer culture of 5.23. And so now if I can get the internal people and the external customers all rating us a 5, that's what I'm after.
That's great. So what's cool is that you're measuring it, and so a lot of if you can't manage it if you don't measure it, right?
Absolutely
and so
right.
People can say, well, yeah, organizational culture is important. Well, do you measure it?
Right.
And then you get,
how do you know?
And then you get crickets normally, right? But if so you're
Were you guys
it.
measuring it at Johnson Industries?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So we did anonymous surveys every year. We did 360, leadership surveys. You got to have thick skin, right? Because the feedback coming is.
Well, that's what I was going to say, man.
Yeah.
Like we talk, right? We always talk in the exit planning world about you calling my baby ugly.
Yeah.
I could tell you when I got that 3, as a typical owner, somebody that advises owners, you'd probably laugh at me. When I was getting interviewed, I was like, our culture's friggin' fantastic, right? Like this is one of the best places to work.
Yeah.
And same thing. Well, did you measure it? Well, no. Do you have any like awards or proof that you're a good culture? Well, no, So we did that anonymous survey, man, and it came back. And I remember Jocelyn coming into my office. She's like, well, the survey's back. I'm like, perfect. Like, what are our people telling us? She's like, I don't like, maybe we should go out to lunch, And so, and I looked at it and it was like multiple emotions, right? Like I got a little defensive, got a little mad, and then got a little sad. Like, man, I think I'm letting our people down. And that's when the intentionality came, though. When I got that survey where our folks said, we believe in the product and process, right? We believe in the SEPA community. We actually believe in the Snider family. There's some things that we need to tweak for the next generation of leaders that want to work here. And yeah, man, that feedback was.
Well, don't feel bad because the first time we did it, it was
bad for you guys too.
It was sobering.
It was. You're like, whew,
yeah,
we got some work. I can only imagine doing it with 600 people too.
Yeah, but it made us better, right?
100%, right?
Made us better.
We would not be growing the way we're growing today, retaining and attracting the people that we have or coming in, if we weren't open to that feedback. And so, yeah, like that constructive criticism. So yeah, I think people and culture are absolutely critical. So I got to get the NASCAR question in, right, for all of our auto racing fans. Was that actually a good marketing activity for you? Being in the automotive space?
It's hard to measure, right?
Okay.
But I would say yes, it was a good ROI.
Yeah.
We were in the Busch Series, which was on the Saturday race at the time, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
And but our customers loved it,
because you could use it as a client entertainment type thing too,
we
right?
used client entertainment. We used it for award and for our our own employees. They loved it too.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So it was great.
Like taking them out to a race and stuff like that.
And my dad and I had a lot of conversations about ROI.
Oh, I'm sure. Like me and my dad have. Yeah.
So so it was an arm wrestle at times, but
was that driven by you though, or was your dad into it? Were you like, Dad, I think we have to do this?
I kind of drove that one. We were kind of checks and balances, right? So,
right.
I pushed the envelope on marketing sometimes. But,
I'm sure you did. So how long did that last though? How long did you sponsor the car?
I'd say we were in it for 3 or 4 years, but we were in NASCAR in terms of hospitality for
a long time,
20 years.
Yeah. Well, that's probably where all your people are hanging out, right? It's a watering hole for you guys for sure.
Yeah.
I can only imagine, man, just seeing Johnson Industries across the car though. That's got to be pretty sweet.
It was nice to have a horse in the race, right?
Did your driver do well, or was he mid-pack?
Our driver was Joe Bessie.
Yeah.
So he was a kind of an outlier, but he was he did a great job. Yeah. We were in the hunt and didn't win any, but we were in the hunt, so it was good. It was fun.
I think I laughed with you the other day when we were talking about this. But so obviously, I'm a big auto racing guy. We go to the Indy 500 every year.
Yeah.
We go to several Indy races. We do Formula One in Austin at COTA. But I really follow NASCAR quite a bit. I just like the culture. I like the 37 cars on the track. I like the rubbing is racing, right? To me, it's a lot more active than open wheel cars kind of following. But here in Northeast Ohio too, you can find a dirt track down the street, or like a small local half mile oval or quarter mile, something like that. So I told you this the other day. So I'm so into NASCAR that I convinced our director of marketing, Paige, who's the producer of this show as well, to join the NASCAR League this year.
Okay.
And so there's only 2 females in the league, so there's 12 dudes, right, and then 2 women. And before that, it was just my wife, Joy, who's kicking ass, right?
I think I know where this is going.
And so I invited Paige into the league this year, and Paige is sitting in the number 1 spot. I'm like, what the hell? Because she's a Formula One kind of person. I don't really know a lot about NASCAR. We've taken to her we've gone to a couple races together, but she's sitting in the number 1 spot now. But can you imagine how far NASCAR's come though? Back in the 90s or whatever. Now they have NASCAR Fantasy. Can you imagine that?
It's a big business. I mean, it's a big business.
Big business now. So all right. So let's fast forward though. So you sell this company and you sell it to a public company, right?
We did.
So how was that? I mean, that had to be quite interesting. Most of the time in our space today, we're talking about private equity buys or synergistic buys with other maybe competitors. Not necessarily when people come to the SEPA program, we're not necessarily talking about selling to public companies all that often. So what was that like for you? That had to be a huge change.
It was strategic. It was. It was different.
I'm sure.
A lot of mostly good. We had the capital to execute a growth plan, right?
That had to be exciting for you.
Yes. So we had a strategic plan. So to really have the capital to run, and play offense was great. And it was a great cultural fit. There was no problem there at all. They left us alone for the most part. Fortunately, we hit our numbers most of the time.
Got to definitely do that, right?
I think the biggest transition for us was inside of a public company. It's a quarter by quarter, report card, and a mentality. And so sometimes, as a privately held business, we made decisions. Okay, what's best for 5 years from now, 10 years from now. It was always about pouring money back into the company and growing it for the long term. Well, inside the public company, I had a report card every 90 days. And so, you were forced into making decisions sometimes for the short run, which was, frankly, I didn't enjoy. And it wasn't in my DNA. It wasn't how I thought. So
just seemed to be like you'd be much more like under the microscope.
In this particular case, again, it was a great cultural fit, and they left us alone for the most part. Good. But they provided oversight, resources, and I learned a lot. I mean, every 90 days. This is a $20 billion company. Every 90 days, I'm in a boardroom with, we were the smallest subsidiary, so I'm in a boardroom with a bunch of leaders of billion-dollar businesses, and so I soaked up a lot, learned a lot. And
so what happened to your dad? Did Dad stick around, or did
we both stayed? We had a 2-year employment agreement, so we had to stay 2 years.
You stay longer or no?
To our shock, we stayed 4.5 years.
Both you and Dad?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I think that's kind of unique too. It had to be a good culture fit.
Yeah, it was great. So eventually the honeymoon was over. So we.
Well, you grew to $300 million, right? Yeah. So it's like maybe it's time for something different. But you were named CEO when that happened, right? When you transitioned.
Shortly after, yeah.
Yeah, to the public company, yeah. So a huge responsibility, I think, for sure.
It was.
Yeah, that's again. So how did culture get affected by the public company?
I would say little to no impact.
So that's how did you find the buyer then? So I'm trying to peel this layer of the onion back, right? So what was the catalyst to say, like, Dad, I think it's time to sell? What?
Well, it was a combination. I mean, God brought the buyer. Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, just out of
out of the blue,
out of nowhere. But it came at a time where, every business owner faces the question of, how long do you want to keep sliding your chips on the table, right?
Of course.
And after growing the way growing, the stakes get higher and higher, and so more risk.
Absolutely.
And so it came at a time where we had big plans.
Yeah.
But we needed, we needed capital to really
do what you wanted to
do what we wanted to do. So it came at the right time. And for my dad, who'd been doing it, over 40 years, it was definitely the right time for him.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. But we were aligned. And so, yeah.
Did you use an investment banker? Or did you and Dad handle the deal with, like, your advisory team?
We brought in some advisors.
Yep.
But we didn't run a full process.
Okay.
So we ran the ground ball out with that buyer.
Yeah.
But it was, did we leave money on the table if we'd ran a full process? Probably.
Yeah. I was going to say lessons learned, right? So it's got to, I just said this at the top of the show. I think it's got to be such a unique thing for you to kind of come full circle, right? So you've sold a pretty big company, and now you're representing owners that are selling big companies, right? So, and you flash forward, I guess, 25 years ago or whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
Or 25 years ago. Like, what kind of, knowing what you know now, what would you have told yourself 25 years ago?
Well, definitely to run a full process.
Yeah.
It does come down to the advisors that you have around you.
Right.
And we had good advisors, but we would have, if I had to do it over again, we would have ran a full process.
Yeah, full process and really gone through the full thing. Yeah. I mean.
And we may have ended up with the same buyer.
Sure.
But it might have been a better deal.
Do you think that would have deterred the buyer if you were like, hey, I want to run this? Because they came to you.
They did.
And you kind of kept everything with all eggs in one basket. And if you said, hey, let's pause and come, I want to run a full process, do you think they would have left, or do you think they would have stuck with you?
I think they would have stuck.
Yeah, because they were pretty interested in the fit.
Especially if we would have ran a streamlined process. We have clients that come to us today that have a buyer, at the table.
Right.
Right. And so, the ability to engage with that buyer, keep them, feeling good, but also quietly, run a streamlined process.
Yeah.
To put some more bait in the water and really keep the buyer honest.
Well, that's what I was going to say, right? Like, at least have some representation as the owner for sure. So when you were growing through acquisition, who's sourcing those deals? Was that you that was looking at those as well?
I was kind of the lead deal maker.
The deal guy. Yeah. So that had to be an interesting transition for you too.
That's really where I cut my teeth on M&A.
I was going to say, right? Yeah.
So we did about 20 acquisitions and learned a lot. Learned a lot. Made some mistakes.
I'm assuming so. Yeah.
But
and how was that integration, right? So one of the things we don't talk about, and our methodology, right? We have discover, prepare, and decide. And one of the things we don't talk a lot about in our community is like the integration and optimization. So now I've acquired 20 companies, company 1, company 2, company 3. How are they integrating into what we do? Both, again, across all 4 C's, right? How are the customers, the systems, the people, the culture?
It's the hard part.
I would assume so.
It's so hard. It's, I don't know the percentage today, but, the percentage of acquisitions that actually work, where 1 and 1 really does equal 3 or 4 or 5, it's a low percentage. Because the integration is just so difficult. So what I learned in it is really, instead of thinking about the integration plan afterwards, you really do all that up front, and you really have a full integration plan in writing up front, total buy-in from the company you're acquiring. Everybody's singing out of the same hymn book. They're on the same page, and you really have the plan in advance, and you've got buy-in in advance. Even on tough calls, but it's more of it's an understanding prior to the deal getting closed.
So you're saying do that before the deal even before purchase agreement.
That's what
make
I
it a part of the due diligence process.
Because if you don't have buy-in on that, then it's not going to work.
Yeah. My dad's story too, Flexalloy was a private company that's where he kind of cut his teeth, if you will, in the whole exit planning arena. He was hired at $90 million, and they grew the company to $250 and then sold it to Textron, right? Another huge public company, right?
Yeah.
So sold to Textron, and their owner, I think he had like a 4-year employment agreement. Andy Rayburn had like a 4-year. He lasted 2. But serial kind of entrepreneur. He actually came into his dad's business when he was 22 years old because his father had passed away. So he was kind of thrust into taking over dad's business at 22 years old. And was able to grow it to $90 million. And then kind of same thing with you guys wanted to get to 300 and knew you needed some capital and some other expertise. Andy surrounded himself for the first time with some like heavy hitting executives, consultants that he brought in internally, one of them being my dad. They again went from 90 to 250. But when you read that story and walk into that center, you hear my dad talk about it too. They brought my dad in. He was like, I think commuting to like Detroit or something, and they were paying my dad like a ton of money. And Dad just was like, I'm so friggin' bored. I just sit in this friggin' office all day, right? There's no, so they're in. I think about that because they ended up losing a lot of the executive team.
Oh yeah.
Andy took a haircut from leaving early. He said, "Fine, I know I'm not going to get that money. I'm out of here."
Right.
And then Dad eventually left too. I think Dad had a lot of opportunity there, but I think Dad was a little bored because everything was so slow moving for him. And if you look, I remember, if you look at Flexaloy today, it kind of fizzled away. So that optimization and integration plan, critical path.
It's critical.
And when you look at that. So I got to take a quick break. So when we come back, I want to talk to you about the work that you're doing today. So give us a quick couple minutes, and we'll be right back.
Are you a business owner seeking to unlock the true potential of your enterprise? Look no further than the second edition of Christopher Snider's revolutionary book, Walking to Destiny: 11 Actions an Owner Must Take to Rapidly Grow Value and Unlock Wealth. In this updated edition, Snider presents proven strategies for maximizing your company's value and accelerating growth. Whether you're aiming to sell or simply want to ensure long-term success, this book offers a blueprint for building a thriving, self-sustaining business. Walking to Destiny isn't just another book, it's a game changer, backed by Snider's own experience as a successful business owner and as a SEPA. This book bridges the gap between business owners and advisors, guiding you towards financial freedom. But don't just take our word for it, hear from those whose lives have been transformed by its insights. One satisfied reader raves, "The best guide for transitioning out of privately owned companies. I recommend it to all business owners and advisors." Another praises it on its focus for maximizing business value, calling it their, quote, principal tool for educating owners. Ready to take control of your business's destiny? Visit walkingtodestiny.com now and use code EXITISNOW to claim your free copy of Walking to Destiny: 11 Actions an Owner Must Take to Rapidly Grow Value and Unlock Wealth. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Make the moment perfect by seizing this opportunity today.
All right, guys, we're back here on the Exit Is Now podcast, hanging out with Terry from Generational Group. So talked about you as a business owner, selling the business of the public company in the first segment of the show. Now, again, coming full circle, now you get to represent owners that are doing that every day. In 2021, I think I read, you guys hit 1,000 deals. Was 2021?
We're over 1,500
now you're
transactions.
Transactions. So that's a big win. Do you remember when you joined? Because you spent almost maybe even over a decade after Johnson Industries in another investment banking firm, right?
No, my dad and I just formed a small family office.
Oh, okay.
And
that's what
we
did.
Made, 40 or 50 bets. And so,
but you did that for like a decade.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. And then, so what attracted you into? And when I first met you guys, it wasn't Generational Group yet. It was Generational Equity, right?
Right.
Because you didn't have all the stuff when you first joined that you have today. I don't think, or it wasn't as.
No, I mean the company's grown. It's evolved.
Quite a bit. Yeah.
We've added services.
Yeah. So what attracted you into Gen Equity then? Back in the day?
I had the great pleasure of I started speaking at the conferences
that they put on.
That we put on. Yeah. And they're educational conferences for business owners, and so they're a full day. So I would speak for 8 hours on exit strategy. I'd kind of been there, done that.
Exactly.
It was very gratifying.
Yeah. So talk to me about the education. So this year we've had the 2023 National State of Owner Readiness Surveys come out. I had 4 big observations there. The first major one was all around owner education. And it's something you guys do a lot of today, something like 400 events a year or something like that, something like
around
that.
Yeah.
So how important do you think education is for business owners? And do you think from your time from starting with Generational Equity and moving over the course of, when did you join there? 2015, 16, something like that?
I moved to Dallas 16.
Yeah,
2016.
16. Yeah. So kind of a short run actually now from 16 to 24. How have you seen the education impact the business owners? Do you find that the owners that are coming to you today are a little bit more educated than they were 10 years ago? Or do they have the same kind of issues?
I think the education's important. I mean, we've educated over 110,000 business owners now. Wow. And our best client is an educated client.
Absolutely right.
I mean, because the process is, it's a process. It's not an overnight deal. So, we believe in education. And, your question is an interesting one. Are owners more educated today? Well, there's 110,000 that are more.
Yeah. Well, there's at least that have gone through your programs, right?
But I mean, I mean, there is the internet now, right? So, I think there's more information there. So maybe they're a little more informed, but I still find, most business owners, I mean, our conferences are, for most business owners, regardless of size of business, they're a game changer, and for some, life changing. I mean, it's a
really
conference.
Transformational moment, I would assume.
It is. It's I don't know. It's Jack Welch meets Tony Robbins, so it's a great day for most business owners.
I think that they're naturally, to your point, a little bit more educated than they were 10 years ago, right? The State of Owner Readiness Survey kind of indicates that. Yeah. Primarily, though, if you look at it and dissect that, it's primarily driven by people 43 years old to 56 years old. So the next generation of owners are much more educated about this, that we talk about exit strategy as business strategy than the boomers. Or is that, I was going to say, you would say that the younger owners are a little bit more in that built to sell kind of mentality or open to advice?
Well, you hit on something there, because we, 10 years ago, really, our client base was pretty much all baby boomers.
Yeah, it would have to be, right?
But now we have we kind of have two ponds to fish in, if you will, right?
Yeah.
So we've got baby boomers, and now there's millennials. And we have more and more millennials attending our conferences, and millennials are different because the baby boomers, they tend to hold a business 15, 20, 30 years, right?
Yeah.
Millennials, not so much.
Right.
I mean, they're
like the boomerang exits, right? They're going to grow, sell, grow, sell, grow, sell.
5, 6, 7 years, they're out. They're doing something else. So, so it's a different mindset.
Do you work with a lot of family businesses, like you and your dad?
Vast majority.
I mean, I guess that's probably a big chunk of American businesses, anyways, right? It's like 85 or 90% are some family controlled or owned.
And we're segmented. We work with small businesses in the lower middle market, and then we have a group that works with larger enterprises.
So now that you've moved into your role now as Chief Revenue Officer, right? Do you miss at all getting rolling up the sleeves? How integrated with the business owners that you represent are you today, right? Because now you're running the show.
Well, the highlight of my day is when I get to spend time with a business owner, or a client that may be touring our offices. Or
you love the tour. I could tell you that. It is, if you ever do get a chance to go over to, I guess that's your headquarters office in Dallas, right? Yes. You go over there. Me and Josh had the unique experience to come there, and they were very passionate about you having us at their office, and now I see why. I have a deeper respect for it, too, because I'm actually very similar. Because Josh was like, I was like, Josh, let's just meet them for dinner. Like, well, they want us to pop in the office beforehand, and I was like, oh, can we just, we've been traveling all day, if I'm being honest. We're traveling all day.
Sure.
Can we just meet them at dinner? He's like, Scott, look, and Josh is a longtime friend of mine, too. He's like, Scott, stop bullshitting around. You love people coming to your office, too. You're no different than Terry. You want to show off who you are because it's a part of the culture. And the culture was cool because we're sitting there meeting and like a big gong-type bell goes off. And I'm like, what in the hell is that? And that's a deal closing, right?
It is. We have a huge bell. That, we have 2 floors in our offices, but there's other tenants there that do not like the bell ringing, but
it's pretty loud. I mean, it was pretty alarming.
Loud.
It is loud.
But we're not going to stop ringing it. So,
but you ring it when
when we have a deal closed.
When you have
the
deal closed,
on average, every other day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're doing, how many deals will you do in a year?
We're in, between 170 and 200 transactions a year. Yeah.
And so now uniquely, kind of jumping around here, but now uniquely with a more robust service offering, right? Because you have IT now, right? Like a tech division.
So we've added, in the last 5 years, we've made a few acquisitions of ourselves. So we bought a growth consulting division because, not all business owners are looking to sell a business, right? Yeah. They're more interested in growth. So we got a really robust strategic growth planning division. Got great leadership there, great team. We acquired a wealth advisory group. So, we've now transferred, I think over $9 billion in wealth to our clients. So, we now have a group post-closing that helps them, preserve the wealth and grow it. And then we just recently acquired, about a year or so ago, a digital services group, technology group. They're a great add to the business. I mean, what business doesn't need technology help
especially
today?
In 2024, right?
Exactly.
So do you find, I ask this a lot to like private equity groups too that work with us, right? Because they're looking at 1,000 deals and buying one or two, maybe 5 in a year. Right. So similar question to you guys. How many owners are introduced to you and you go, look, we could take you to market now, but we probably should go over the growth side and focus on and getting ourselves ready. What does that look like for you guys too? Because you have a lot of SEPAs at your firm too.
We do. Yeah. Well, it's a conversation we have with every business owner, and you know, there's some businesses that are, I would say, more market ready than others, and so sometimes it's we want to, you know, as an advisor, there's times we have to tell them what they don't want to hear, which is, hey, let's work on the business before we go to market, unless there's a compelling reason to go to market now.
Kind of like your deal, right? Like it was a compelling reason to go when you had that kind of unsolicited offer.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you see some of the biggest struggles with owners are as well today? When you think about readiness issues, or you think about those clients that want to move over to the consulting side because they're not market ready?
Right.
Is it the same stuff that you've seen 25 years ago, or has some of the generational stuff changed that? What does it look like today?
I think it's a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
Business owners grapple with timing, right? I mean, is it the right time? Do I want to keep shoving chips on the table, or do I want to hedge my risk and bring in a growth partner, or do I want to exit now? Can my son or daughter really take the business over? Should I sell it? There's all those same questions. I will say, COVID had an impact, right? So, some businesses benefited from COVID, others were crippled. The PPP propped them up for a while. So post that money, businesses are, it was a disruption, right? And so
100%.
And so it's caused businesses to have to deal with that disruption and then come out of it. And so, in some ways it made companies better because it forced them to...
Made us better.
Yeah, forced them to do things that, maybe they had it in their plan to do at some point, but it expedited it.
I mean, our story, right? Total disruptor for us. I mean, it changed the way we did business. It's just so funny, too, being a younger guy. When I go back to the virtual education, we were obviously 100% in person, and the disruptor COVID made us had to think, how do we deliver it virtually? And I was always, you think I'd be into virtual education because I'm just younger, and I was totally opposite because I'm a people guy, right? I want to be in there with you, right? I want to roll up my sleeves, knock out a case study. That's why I love our summit so much. But yeah, total disruptor, and then it disrupted culture, people, all four C's for us. But really, truly, made us a way stronger company from an owner standpoint. Taught me not to get comfortable. I think if I'm being truly honest with you, 2019, we had a really good year. I was pretty comfortable, right? With the first time we made like some good money. We had a good client, good membership base. We had a lot of great things. And then COVID slaps you in the face and you're like, shit, man, like we got too comfortable and not innovative and creative. And I think we were talking about this last time I saw you too. It's like almost like every 2 to 3 years, the business has to innovate and evolve. So it taught us that. It taught us that. It taught us that as well. No doubt.
Well, you've done a great job at it.
Thanks,
I think
man.
You pivoted. No, seriously. I've kind of watched from afar.
Yeah, you watch always from afar, right?
It's been impressive what you've done.
Yeah. It goes back to what we talked about at the top of the show. It's truly people and culture. One of the things that I think, when we were talking about education too. I think as business owners, I don't know if you would agree with this, but as business owner, for me, I started my first company when I was 16. Been to plenty of seminars, webinars, mentors, and coaches. I think one of the struggles, and I'd like to see, you got me thinking about this when you talked about millennial business owners, that I think as business owners, we're trained to grow successful companies, right? Like highly profitable, strong balance sheet, great people and culture, good entangled customers, lean processes, systems, but we're never taught how all of that converts to value, right? So we're taught, at least for me, right? And I think that that's why I was talking to you about the educational questions, and I can now imagine if I was 16 when I started that company, and then somebody had taught me not only how to create a very profitable business, good reoccurring revenue, great client relationships, great people, but then how that converted to value and how I could eventually sell that thing in 5 or 10 years or whenever I really wanted to, right? I think that's the true challenge for us, is to change. You talked about changing owner mentality. The owner needs to know how, like what we call success and significance, the year-over-year success, but how long-term value is created as well. Is that fair to say?
It is.
Yeah.
I love the Bob Buford book, right?
Yeah.
Because success to significance is what it's about, and
Yeah, I think that's where we're heading. I have a question before we are hitting the top of the hour. So, potentially in closing, if you will, here. So, what we found in the State of Owner Readiness Survey, we found that 75% of business owners, regardless of generation, are indicating again they want to sell within 10 years. It's actually, when you really dissect it, again, going back to these millennials and Gen Xers, really driven by them, because they're like quickening exits, to your point, right? They want to sell in 5 or 10 years or 15 years, right? They're not holding businesses generationally for a long time.
No.
So what it's created, our business was founded on this book called The $10 Trillion Opportunity, right? You probably remember Peter Chrisman and Rich Jackin, right? Old school investment bankers, right? Said the $10 Trillion Opportunity. I think it's probably more of like a $14 trillion opportunity, with $9 million coming up in the next 5 years, because there's a pretty big chunk of owners that are looking for the next 5. Somebody that's in the business of representing owners and that are selling. What are you guys? How are we preparing for that? Do you think that's true? You seeing quickening exits? You see a big market? I mean, it's got to be a great time to be an investment banker.
I mean, it's I'm bullish. I'm bullish.
Good.
We're blessed, right?
Yeah.
We're in a business where, I mean, businesses are going to sell in good times and bad times.
Certainly.
What we try to educate owners are because you want to maximize value. You only do it one time, typically, right?
Yeah.
So you poured your whole life into the business, so let's do it. And and market timing and personal timing don't always line up,
No,
right?
sir.
And
right.
so it's but yeah, I'm bullish. I think we got a great opportunity. We're Generational's in a great position. We're headquartered in Dallas. We got 16 offices, 2 in Canada.
Yeah.
And our ownership is tremendous, and they invest in the business. And,
you guys seem all very entrepreneurial. Do you have a lot of guys like you there? People that are former owners?
Yeah, I'm not a unicorn. We have a business owner DNA that runs through our entire business and culture, and I think that really gives us a competitive advantage, because most iBanks or M&A firms are not. I don't think they're as entrepreneurial as we are, and they don't really understand the journey, the pain, the emotions, and what's at stake, really. And
I mean, I would think that, and as an owner myself, there is maybe that's why I'm so attracted to always sitting down and talking to you, because you've done it, right? You went from five people, 1 million, to 600, 300 million. And so as an owner, it's like, this guy's done it. And if you could replicate that kind of story with a bunch of other owners that are now representing owners in value growth and sale, there's just a different kind of camaraderie that's kind of built.
We have that throughout our company.
Well, and you got to be well positioned, I would assume, for the future, like this $14 trillion run, because now you have the consulting, the wealth management, the IT, and the investment bank, right? So you could really move a client around to where they need to be at any kind of given time.
Yeah, we continue to look at additional services that we really just want, wherever the business owner's at in their life journey, we want to be able to be there, add value, and make a difference. It's all about making a difference
totally
in the lives of the business owners and their families.
Well, Terry, we are at the top of the hour already, my friend. So
wow, that went fast.
So the time flies. So I really appreciate you coming in, spending some time with me, taking some time out of your day to hang out here with Team EPI. We had a fun Cavs game. Fun Cavs game the other night, right? And got to meet some fellow folks in the space. So for all of our audience listening in, next show is August 28th. So subscribe, listen, and leave a review on all of your podcast platforms. Terry, thanks, man. I really appreciate you coming in.
We value the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see you guys next time.